Hello and welcome to Steven University. This week we're discussing Monster Buddies, the return of Centipede. So gems are on a mission, taking out another monster. When its gem is bubbled and sent back, the cave in which they found it starts to collapse, and as the gems I guess can survive that, because we see them later, but they're worried Steven won't. They bubble him as a quick escape to get him back to the temple, but while there he releases Centipede, the villain of the very, very first episode of the show. I say the villain, the monster they face in the very first episode of the show. Steven tries to tame Centipede, under the impression that it seems like it's not as necessarily antagonistic as they first thought, but over time they go on a bit of a mission with it, and it sort of all goes a bit wrong. It's clearly very it's very unbalanced. It's very sort of erratic in its behavior, and it ends up getting poofed the way that Pearl did in the Sword Fighter episode at the end by getting sort of squished in an attempt to save Steven. So, and then we learn, of course, the big thing of the episode for me, which is that Steven's mother had also tried sort of taming the monsters and had not succeeded. So maybe that's something for him to sort of, going forward, try to work out maybe how to do. So there you go.
Yeah. I'm going to be controversial.
Go on.
I don't mean to, but it's, it's a space of honesty. Other than that last moment at the end, and realising and Garnet's faith in Steven, I didn't think there was anything particularly to grab me. Other than, the end definitely made an impact. Not gonna, deny that. Definitely pulled on the heartstrings and was like, oh, cool. But otherwise, it's just a monster we've already seen running about. For me, at least. Do you disagree? Do you fight for it? What do you, if you unless you agree?
No, I would fight for it, but I'm fighting it from a position of foreknowledge. So, this episode is weirdly important, I'm realising on reviewing. I don't remember my thoughts on first viewing, truthfully, Chris.
No. That's fine.
But on this repeat viewing, I was picking up a lot of early hints about how these things work. And even looking at just the logic of these monsters also have gems like the crystal gems do, and that they can be poofed the way that a gem does instead of dying, sort of reverting. And also, if you remember, and this is just a visual thing, so if you remember when Pearl got stabbed in Steven the Swordfighter, when she re-emerged, you saw her take 3 or 4 forms before she took her new form. Like silhouetted, like white silhouette, she almost cycled through previous versions of herself. And did you notice what happened when Centipede came out of the orb originally?
Yeah, he did the same thing, didn't he?
Almost exactly, yeah. So there's an importance to that, just in that there's obviously a lot more to these monsters than just that they are monsters. I'm assuming you picked up on that, at least.
Yeah. And the fact that I thought it was cool to see almost like the monsters' prison, as it were, and see them all in the balls and stuff, and that idea of that was pretty cool. But and like I say, the moment at the end, very touching, and Garnet's faith in Steven, but fundamentally, for me at least, all of those things didn't stop the action itself just being a bit, he's training a monster. And I think we've had, it comes, the episode where, the moment where he's got them on the beach, and I really love the fact that Lion was in that lineup, and I did enjoy them being very defensive and angry at first, and then you have Steven's attempt to and kind of coach him, but that's kind of my point in a way. We've had a lot of episodes recently where Steven's struggling with the fact that he's trying to do the better thing and it's not quite succeeding. So I think it just it didn't necessarily, whilst being strong and offering a lot of good stuff for the mythology of the show, I didn't necessarily think as an episode of the week it did something that I hadn't experienced in other episodes elsewhere recently.
Okay. I did you not get a lot of humor out of his attempts to train this quite feral creature?
Yeah, but again, matched or slightly less than other pieces of humor recently.
I mean, do you not as well think that like any show that can go from silly nonsense to something that was quite impactful, like the ending, do you not think that's impressive enough to, in a 10-minute episode, is that not enough to give it an overall thumbs up sort of review?
Yeah, but I gave it that. I've acknowledged like twice that I really liked that bit. But that
But I'm questioning whether is that not impressive enough alone to put it in the positive column rather than the negative column?
Yes. So, but that I think comes down to the format of what we're doing. Yes, if I was watching it all on Netflix and watched this episode, I'd go, "Oh, that's pretty cool at the end, yeah," and move on to the next episode. But what we're doing here is dissecting the whole thing. Do you know what I mean? And I would have been wrong to go, "Oh, I loved this one because of this moment."
No, I understand that, but what I'm saying is, like, in the grand scheme of in a sort of binary version of your review where it's either thumbs up, thumbs down. I'm saying,
yeah, it would be thumbs up.
That's what I'm trying to get at, because I'm trying to figure out what your actual overall thoughts were, because you've pointed out something you really liked and you said that there wasn't much else for you, and I'm trying to figure out where that weighs up. So it wasn't so much about it wasn't so much about would you move on and keep watching it. It was more about like what your actual overall thought of this particular episode individually was.
Yeah,
so
I
where
think
do you land?
Yeah, because of that last moment, it's a thumbs up. I didn't hate it. I wasn't angry at it, but I can't imagine. It would have to be a really dull episode with nothing to it to make me as like angry or in some early episodes of this bitter about being forced to watch it.
Such as the episode that shall not be named.
Why the fuck do you do that? Like, I don't know why you do it. I'm skipping over it.
I mean,
out of anger.
I know, but like at a certain point, Chris, like you keep shifting the goalpost. Sometimes you just like don't name it, so I call it the episode that shall not be named, and you're fine. And then sometimes I do that, and just that apparently is enough to annoy you.
I think anything that makes me, because when you hear "he who must not be named," you immediately think of Voldemort. Like by not saying it, even acknowledging it at all, you're making me remember. You know, I'm getting flashbacks. And that's what hurts and angers.
So while we're sort of in this area, like of the mythology, then, because that's what the episode brought, and what we're essentially establishing here is that you just weren't particularly fond of the build-up at all. It didn't really do it for you. It sounds like you didn't find it particularly interesting and you didn't find it particularly funny. But I'm assuming that the moment, like the hug, particularly that calms him down, and then him sacrificing himself as Stephen, obviously gave you the reaction it gave me, which is I genuinely was like, because I'd forgotten that's exactly how this episode ended. I remember I had more clearly remembered that it ended with this kind of sweet thing of him bubbling him and then bubbling the chips as well with him, which I thought was really adorable, and I remembered that really vividly. But I didn't remember how he ended up getting rebubbled again. And as I was watching it, I was going, like, this seems like it's kind of working. Like, how wrong must it go for them to then end up just deciding to bubble him again? So I'd forgotten, I guess, the sacrifice, and I'd forgotten Stephen calming him down with the hug that was hurting him because the spit was so acidic that he just wouldn't let go because he was determined to calm him down. Again, all very adorable, but so I reacted quite viscerally to that. But in terms of the mythology, then where do you line it? Do you have any theories? Have you built anything up? Because we keep getting asked on like YouTube, Reddit, Twitter, like, does Chris have a theory? Do you? I mean, if I was to ask you, describe what you think is going on with the information you've got so far, what would your assertion be? Because keeping in mind, in the first episode, you were utterly baffled.
There's these peeps. They got these gems. No,
Yeah.
there's the gems. It gives them powers. But, like, is the rent really cheap for the 15 people that live in the town? Because most people would move. So I can only assume it's a low rental area, and that's why the people that inhabit the town have stayed there. Because it feels very much connected to the town. I don't, get the impression that there are gems in other parts of the world or gems in other towns. It feels like it's these gems in this situation, and for some reason all this weird shit is attracted to this town, potentially because of the fact that the gems are there. I don't know. Because of what we said the other week about the house being in the rocks and stuff, there maybe is a suggestion that they've been there for as long as can be. Maybe that's why there's no one else in the town, because these things have always been there, so people have just avoided it. And if it's been going on forever, that's why you don't get news reporters every time there's tidal waves and monsters and multiple versions of a boy and stuff. Rose sacrificed herself to have a kid, which must mean that she really loved the dad. I get very confused. I've tried to ignore it, but I like the dad's tan lines and how he looks. Is that a thing? Is that part of it?
There has been a lot of his tan lines come up a lot in in conversations online about it.
Okay. Cool.
You're not alone in your confusion. I really thought you were going to make a really interesting point then. I thought you were really going to point out something that's left you baffled about the mythology. And the tan lines. Of course it was.
But the tan lines, again, you got to be honest. I feel like it's a place for honesty, Dan. And
it is.
The tan lines have made me baffled. I don't know if I'm just sounding stupid. And by the way, if anyone's listening to this thinking, how's he not getting this? I made some kick-ass predictions on our other podcast, Fringe Observers, about the show. Fringe.
Yeah, and the question is, how long do you get to ride that success? That's the...
Because otherwise, it's that. I think they've been there for ages. I think that's now that we're talking it through, I think that's a good theory. I don't overly feel like they're protecting... They protect the town, but I don't think they're protecting... I don't think there's something hidden that they're protecting or anything like that. But I suppose that could be it, because what would keep them at in the town otherwise? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is that enough? Well, give me a question and see where
I was just letting you go to see if you could see it, because I remember on the other podcast on Fringe Observers, it was when I let you go and try to put it together that you started pulling pieces together. I think I've got an interesting theory that I think because this is animated, it's a bit disarming for you. I don't think you're looking necessarily as closely at this as you might a show like Fringe. Is that fair? I don't think that's... I don't mean that necessarily... I'm not saying that as as a dig or anything. I literally just mean because your assumption is that it's ultimately a kids show, I don't think you're looking as deeply at it as maybe you would by default and by nature, just because that's what you do with like a drama, like a Fringe or a Lost or one of those other shows with a complex mythology. Because it's funny because there are things we've directly said, and I've even given you hints about on this podcast, or we've even talked about, and I've said this is a tiny bit of future spoiler that you've already sort of forgotten, I find that interesting.
I wouldn't say that was fair, but I have no evidence to back my claim up, and you have a lot of evidence to back yours. So it could feasibly do that, but I think that would come down more to it being an animated show. I don't, for 1 second, view it particularly as a kids' show. Like, that never comes into play when I'm watching it.
That's fair.
It could be that, and this is what I was saying the other week. Like, I'm now at a point where if this was on Netflix, I would keep watching it, but it's not like something I'd be like overly excited about, and maybe I'll get there, but that's a hard goal to reach, and I don't doubt it's conceivable that I will get there. But as you say, it hasn't particularly happened with any animated show before.
I think partly as well, it's because in a weird way, and this is weird because I don't know many other shows that would get away with doing this, it's kind of hidden its premise. the fact that I'm saying to you, what's it really about at this point? Considering we're over 20 episodes in, all right, they're 10 minutes long. Okay, we're over 15 episodes in, whatever. You're still not really sure. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm not. That's not me saying, yeah, you're dummy, you don't know what's going on. I mean, no audience member would be 100% sure of anything, really, at this point. There's enough information to put theories together, certainly, but there's not been enough information to really know for certain what's actually really going on. And that's...
Also, I think Fringe is so our other we do two other podcasts, Nothing But Static, which looks at TV in general, and Fringe Observers, which is us watching the science fiction show Fringe. And I think Fringe is a show that I probably would have watched and would have enjoyed if I'd have caught it at the time. I never would have watched this show, so maybe I just feel a bit more resentment towards it and ultimately you, and maybe that's affecting my viewing.
See, now that the sarcasm is coming through, so I don't know where the conversation goes.
Awkward ending. No, I'm joking. I don't know, but there could be. Do you know what I mean? I think it is. I don't think there's anything wrong with the fact that I have never really gotten into an animated show. But therefore, the fact that I've never gotten into an animated show could be why I'm not looking out for the big mythology things. But equally, even if I haven't got theories coming out my arse, doesn't mean I'm not enjoying it.
Well, that's what's interesting as well, because in a weird way, it's kind of bizarrely impressive that a show could go so long, keeping much of what sort of its mythology is so hidden, so deep, that for as long as it has, and still engage you. Do you know what I mean? I don't mean you. I mean you as an audience viewer, the wider you. You know what I mean? Like the fact that it can still engage a person without really letting them know too clearly what's going on is pretty impressive, I think.
Do you think it could do that if it was half an hour long? Or do you think the fact that it's 11 minutes long helps that?
I don't know. That's an interesting question. And I really don't know the answer, because there's two schools of thought with that, which is one, you go, yeah, okay, you get through them quicker, so it doesn't feel like you're watching it for as long, so you're more forgiving. But then you go, but if it was longer, you'd probably get to the answers quicker. Do you know what I mean? Like, if the show was longer, we'd have probably already got to some more of the deeper mythology. Do you know what I mean? We'd be twice as far along as we are, if that makes sense. Which means we'd be coming up on sort of... Because we're coming up on Ocean Gem, Mirror Gem. If we were watching these in sets of 2, or, you know, episodes that sort of length with the same sort of content, level of, like, plot development, we'd be coming up on an episode called Jailbreak about now, which is, like... one of the sort of more sort of important episodes mythology-wise. It's I think it's technically considered the season 1 finale, but it's really the season 2 finale, because I think Mirror Gem, Ocean Gem count really as the season 1 finale. Depends how you're splitting it, because Cartoon Network keep changing their mind about whether the seasons are 26 episodes or 52. Depends on the year, basically. Yeah. So yeah, we'd be coming up on a pretty big point mythologically right now if we were doing it double. So I don't know if there is a fair way to answer that question. I guess maybe not. Maybe you're right. Maybe if they weren't so short and inoffensive in that sense, and I mean like that you know, that they just sort of they can sort of slip under the radar without you really feeling too annoyed that you haven't gotten much progression, because they're so short and very digestible.
Yeah, I think that definitely helps. Because also, it manages to be like as we've said, overall, this episode was a thumbs up from me for essentially one moment at the end. And again, I did fucking love Garnet's faith in him, so that throughout as well. But like maybe stretched over half an hour, that one moment isn't enough. But in a show that's only 11 minutes long, as long as it's got some laughs, as long as it's got some mythology, and as long as it's got some pretty shit hot animation, doesn't need to do much more than that to make someone give it a thumbs up.
That's true. You've got me there. Just worth noting as well that the burning room, which is the room in which all the bubbles were kept in, we've actually seen that room before in Together Breakfast.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's the room that Garnet burns that scroll that has magic powers in.
Ah, the magic power scroll. I have no idea what you're talking about.
So she has a scroll, and she says this image is like, I don't know, possessed or something, and and then she goes to burn it, and Stephen takes a picture of it before he burns it. So she takes his phone off him and burns that too.
Oh yeah, I do remember that joke. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the same room. Like in it's the burning room. That's the room that all the bubbles are kept in as well. So we have actually technically seen that room once before, although we may not have known necessarily what it was for at that point. So yeah, yeah. I guess I don't know. Yeah, I think it's worth to leave it there because I feel like we need to talk more about what the actual content of the episode, but it feels like we've gotten into a wider debate about the show instead, but I don't know what there is to say about the episode other than the very quick review of it's fine, but the ending is very powerful.
Yeah, but I think that wider discussion lends itself to that, like it all applies to that episode, which I think is interesting. Would you have any other? Did you enjoy the other content mainly for its humour?
Yeah, I found it quite funny. Just the idea of Steven's so naive. And in the way he just because even I'm going, dude, this is like a snarly acid dribble monster. Like, come on, like even I consider
snarly
myself
acid dribble monster is actually the name of my band. If anyone wants to check that out.
But you know what I mean? Like that's what it is. I mean, you can describe, you can call it whatever you like, but like ultimately, Centipede is like it's a slimy acid dribbling monster. That's what it is. Yeah. So the fact that he's like trying to play with it and like he's treating it like a dog basically, and I'm just like, even I'm as a person who likes the sort of the hopeful message of this show and the naivety of Steven, even I'm going, oh dude, come on, like dude.
That does make the hug more powerful though.
Yeah, 100%. And like you get a hint of it in the middle of the episode as well when the bird tries to steal Steven's chips, the chaps, as they're called. And Centipede sort of protects him. You get a hint of it then. And I also really I tell you what I do like about the sort of main content of the episode. I really like that when all the other gems are telling him he's crazy. Well, Amethyst doesn't care. When Pearl is telling him he's crazy and that it's dangerous, Garnet is the one who sort of she allows it. She says, no, let Stephen try to do this. And I think that's partly to do with arguably her future sight, her ability to foresee. Maybe she knows that it's part of Stephen's journey to learning to be more like his mum, maybe, or maybe she knows that it's that he's going to be safe no matter what, and he that he might learn from it, or that it's worth trying. It's hard to say, but I found that really telling of Garnet's character. So I got a lot out of that too, which is in the middle of the episode. And then of course the idea of this snarly monster and Steven's just like trying to pet it and hug it, like in the middle of the episode. That is obviously the hug at the end is a bit different, but like the way he's treating it like Lion basically, even though it's nowhere near as cuddly as Lion, is amusing to me no matter what. So I found that the build up relatively funny. It had these huge hints at mythology even early on, like I said, about the bubbling and how the gems work, and then looking at the idea that these monsters sort of get poofed the way that the crystal gems get sort of poofed when they die or get injured. So you're looking at that and going and trying to think about what that could mean for the continuity overall, and then on top of that you get this really huge emotional punch at the end. So for me this episode does have a lot of stuff because it has a big emotional punch, a lot of mythology, and I laughed a bunch. So I don't know what more I could possibly ask for of an episode.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I do see what you're saying, which is that the themes of the early parts of this episode are not particularly new ground for the show. We've seen Stephen be that naive before. We've seen him,
and we've seen him do that fairly recently as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I totally get why that might not necessarily appeal. But like I said, for me, it hit all the right notes.
Yeah, cool. Well, I said I was going to be controversial.
Mm.
But sometimes I think people come here for my misery. So,
well, frustratingly, we got a comment today complaining about how I talk too much on this podcast. Well, no, they were complaining that they don't want my thoughts. They come here to listen to you and what you think of the episode. And I just talked for like 4 minutes straight about the episode. So that person's going to be...
that person, yeah, but that not when I'm, because I worry with because I after finishing it and being like, I didn't really enjoy that as much as other episodes. I was like, fuck. Like, if I was listening to this and it was about a show that I loved, I'd be really pleased that I was being won round. And now I've either made people go, oh, cool, he's not really enjoying it, we're back to the glory days. Or I've made people go, you're a prick. Like, so, I may get some hate for this one, so I wouldn't worry too much about people shitting on you for talking too much. And also, the way I look at the comments, and obviously I don't look at the comments in case of spoilers.
You see the comments that I send you, the ones that don't spoil
exactly.
stuff. I send you a handful of ones that aren't spoilery.
We record these so far ahead, I always kind of think there's not much we can do with the comments. Because that issue might not be an issue for someone in the 10 weeks.
With that guy's point, and I'm going to quickly read out what he said. I only try following the series because I'm interested in how a new fan feels, not how someone who already knows about it feels, in reference to the fact that he literally says, just let Chris talk about the show and ask how he feels about certain things. That's what he wants from me. But I'm just looking at the description of the podcast.
Yeah.
Which is, the premise is someone who's never seen it, someone who's a big fan. And
and I don't, I love anyone for listening and especially love anyone for giving any kind of feedback. So not to, it's not a defensive reaction at all. But for me, the beauty of this premise and the beauty of the premise for Fringe Observers is that juxtaposition of someone who loves it and has seen it and is, excited for it against a new fan who's just learning what it is. I think that's a nice juxtaposition, and that's the purpose of the podcast in that way.
Yeah, so for me, it's the premise. So he's basically like, I don't know. He's like, yeah, I'm watching this new drama. I hate drama. It's like, why are you watching a drama then? I don't we're not going to give him what he wants. Is what I'm getting at. Like, he's looking for a different podcast.
So therefore, don't apologise for talking for 4 minutes.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. There you go.
It's upsetting, Chris.
Don't let it get to you, Dan.
I want people to like the podcast. I just want to be loved.
I do like the podcast. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, you're right. Anyway.
Let the internet say what it will say.
I know,
we came up with a way of ending
so
these now.
Good.
We came up with a way. Yeah, and thank you all for that. It's weird because, like, as we've said before, we record them so far in advance. At this point, we're in a real heyday. When recording this, we're in a real heyday of positive feedback. When you're listening to this, that might have died down. But at this moment in time, we're incredibly grateful to everyone for leaving the feedback. So thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. We love you all.
Yeah.
Except
Didn't
for
we
that,
agree?
except for
we
that one
decided
guy.
on a way.
That one guy sucks. No, I'm kidding.
He's great. He commented. That's all you can want. Did we came up with a way to end this, didn't we, last time?
Yeah, it was just like our other podcast, wasn't it? It's just like,
okay,
I'm Dan Doolan.
I'm Chris Billingham.
And we'll see you next week for an indirect kiss.